This is 2015's Pixels. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up to Brenner as he rides his bike to the arcade in the 80s, and it's a good day for a ride. On his way, he stops by Cooper's house to remind him that the arcade is open, and Cooper steals his sister's hard-earned quarters before joining him. Once at the arcade, they look around in amazement and split up to wait in line for the games. Remember arcades? They were the perfect place to kick back and relax, but that high score was like winning first place in a reality show starring yourself. Having your three-letter initial on that video game cabinet was your way to prove that you were the best. They were simpler times. After seeing how good Brenner is at games, Cooper shows him a flyer for the National Video Game Championship, and they meet Ludlow while they're there. They also meet Eddie, who's the hotshot around these parts. Once the championship starts, the announcer tells participants that NASA is actually here to videotape the tournament, and they're going to send the footage into space in a time capsule to make contact with alien life. By the end of the tournament, Eddie and Brenner are the two finalists, and it comes down to one final game, Donkey Kong. The two of them go head-to-head, and it almost looks like Brenner might pull this off. That's not the case though. Eddie pulls off the win and Brenner goes off to sulk. Cooper catches up to him though, and he tells him that he's going to be super successful even though he lost. Yeah, Brenner ends up like the rest of us. He's a mobile tech. He's still a nerd. Meanwhile, Cooper became the president. Talk about setting your sets high. Also, aliens are real and they're coming to Earth. After eating lunch with Cooper, Brenner goes to Maddie's house to install a whole new home entertainment system. And Maddie tells him about how his mother is going through a divorce. Just then Violet pops up, and Brenner can't believe that she's Maddie's mom. He stumbles around for words, and all he can say is that he should have brushed his teeth this morning. That's a great way to make a first impression. Meanwhile, the military's under attack, and Brenner's talking to Maddie about how he used to be good at video games. Once Brenner finishes up, he goes to have Violet sign off on things, but he finds her crying in the closet. He comes in to see if she's okay, but the sippy cup of Chardonnay tells him that she's not okay. He sits down next to her and she continues to sob. Across the world, a military base is under attack, and it seems to be by a bunch of light particle cubes? Or pixels! See what they did there? What's a little terrifying is one of the soldiers gets turned into pixels when he's abducted. That's horrifying, and kinda cool at the same time. Wonder what it would be like to be turned into pixels. Back at the house, Brenner's joined Violet with her bottle of Chardonnay, and he thinks that the right person is still out there for her. Then Brenner decides to lean in for a kiss, and Violet can't believe that he was really shooting a shot there. They rush into the kitchen and she tells him that her rebound guy isn't going to be a nerd. Just then, Cooper calls to have him come to the White House, and Brenner excuses himself after calling her a snob. On the way to the White House, Brenner finds out that Violet is actually going his same direction, and he thinks that she's following him. Once he gets to the gates, he finds out that Violet is actually a lieutenant colonel. But she gets the shock of her life when Brenner is invited into the Oval Office. Cooper shows Brennan satellite footage of the attack, and Brenner can't believe that video games are attacking them. It sounds absolutely stupid, and everyone except for Cooper agrees. Can't really blame him. After Brenner's told to leave, he starts driving home, but he's surprised by Ludlow, who somehow ended up in his car. Brenner punches him when he pops up, and Ludlow rolls right out onto the street. After Brenner realizes who he is, he finds out that he was getting ready to chloroform him, but he really trusts that he's himself after hearing about a conspiracy he had. Ludlow takes him back to his place, and he shows that he knows about the top-secret attack on the base. Ludlow reminds him about the tape that was sent into space from the Video Game Championship, and he thinks that aliens are sending down real-life versions of what they saw on that tape. Then he shows Brenner a recording he made last night that proves that the aliens are trying to make contact. The aliens think that the videotape was a declaration of war, and it uses weird footage of celebrities how they were in the 80s. They give us 3 lives, and they think that the base in Guam was a victory for them already. Don't think anyone could really pull that off nowadays. Brenner takes Ludlow to the White House to show Cooper the tape, and he thinks that the next attack will be in northern India. Brenner thinks that he should rally the troops to intercept the aliens in India, but Cooper doesn't think that it's wise to authorize international military attacks based off of old video game footage. Well, Earth ends up losing its second life when the aliens take out the Taj Mahal. Cooper then takes Ludlow and Brennan to Violet's lab to collaborate with her, and she shows him what she's learned about the pixels. She finds out that the pixels are just light energy, and they dissolve everything they touch into other pixels. Violet shows them the weapon she's created to destroy the pixels, and she takes them to give a speech to the SEALs that were specially trained for this mission. Brenner tells them that they've been training for this since childhood, and now I'm starting to think that all my video game knowledge could come in handy sometime. Granted, I was never great at any classic arcade game, but I had a few favorites. Cubert and Galaga specifically? Huh, Pac-Man though, that gave me anxiety. After their speech, Brenner and Ludlow show off their knowledge of the classic arcade games, and Cooper goes on a cake decorating date with the First Lady. Their date is interrupted when an alien transmission comes in, and they head to the UK to prepare for the next attack. Violet has the light cannons unloaded, and everyone heads to the support area to wait. Eventually, the aliens arrive, and they're ready to play some Centipede. Brennan tries to remind the soldiers to hit them from the head down because hitting in the middle will split it in two. Sure enough, they start shooting them in half, and the centipedes make it to the ground. They should have had the guns in the hands of the nerds from the very start. Brenner's literally a world champion in everything aside from Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. Let them at it. Sure enough, Ludlow grabs a light cannon just in time for level 2, and they manage to take out every single enemy in every level. This is literally like a life-size VR game. I'd hate to have this with my favorite horror games though. I'm prepared for Silent Hill, but I'm not necessarily hoping for it. Just before the end, one of the centipedes makes it into the city, and Brenner chases it all the way to the apartment buildings where he finishes it off before it eats a kid. After winning, the soldiers and nerds head to the pub to celebrate, and Violet decides to drink with Brenner. Once Cooper arrives, the aliens send another transmission as a way to announce Earth's victory, and they send the duck hunt dog as a trophy. The aliens tell them to prepare for the next battle, and Cooper tells the nerds that he wants them to take the point from now on. He thinks that there's no one else better than them, but Ludlow points out that there's one person missing. Cooper takes Brenner and Violet to a prison where they meet with Eddie to negotiate his release. Eddie's never grown past that summer when he won first place. He's still calling himself the Fire Blaster. Better yet are his demands. He wants an island, a full pardon, no taxes, a stealth attack helicopter, and a romantic rendezvous with himself, Serena Williams, and Martha Stewart. Okay, he's really aiming for the stars here. Cooper agrees to the pardon, taxes, and Serena Williams, and they head to New York City for the next battle. Once there, they talk to a rookie cop who saw the enemy, and they find out that it's Pac-Man. Yeah, that'd be where I pack up. Goodbye, Earth! Violet shows the guys two appropriately colored cars that they're calling ghosts, and they have the light cannons attached to them. Brennan realizes that there are 4 of them, and they meet Professor Iwatani, the creator of Pac-Man. Violet gets Brenner strapped in, and she reminds him that they have to zap Pac-Man 3 times to win the game. They head deeper into the city, and Violet watches via satellite. Pac-Man's absolutely terrifying. Look at that thing! The group can't believe that Pac-Man's the bad guy, and Professor Iwatani gets out of his ghost to talk to Pac-Man. Brenner knows that this is a bad idea, but he tries it anyways. He speaks to Pac-Man as though he's his son, and it almost seems as though it's working. It doesn't though. In fact, Pac-Man bites his hand into pixels, and Professor Iwatani runs away. The nerds take off after Pac-Man, and they have a tough time maneuvering past all the pixel damage that he's leaving behind them. They realize that Pac-Man has always been faster than the ghosts, and Eddie tells them that they have to outmaneuver him. Yeah, then Eddie puts on his shades, and Violet watches him glitch around the city. No way. They get Pac-Man number 1, but then he gets a power pellet. And this is the Pac-Man that I remember. Pac-Man takes out Ludlow's ghost, but luckily he jumps out before it's completely gone. Ludlow tries to run on foot, but luckily, Eddie shows up out of nowhere and takes out Pac-Man number 2. Violet has no idea how he got over there so quickly, but no one else seems to be questioning it. Suddenly, Pac-Man number 3 spawns, and the 2 remaining ghosts go after him. Eddie's quickly out of the race when he turns into the river, but Brenner is still close on Pac-Man's tail. Violet reminds him that there are 2 other power pellets, and sure enough, he goes right for one. When Pac-Man turns on Brenner, he throws his ghost in reverse and starts counting down as he leads Pac-Man into a nearby parking garage. Pac-Man ends up going to eat Brenner just as his power pellet runs out, and that's too close for comfort for me. The city gathers to thank and congratulate the nerds, and even Eddie seems to have missed the praise. Suddenly, Ludlow shows up with their next trophy, and it's Qbert. Later, Cooper meets for a press conference, and it becomes clear that the country is happy with his new approach to things. The general isn't happy with the praise the nerds are getting, but there's not much he can do. Meanwhile, Brenner watches Maddie playing video games in the lab, and he wonders how he plays these new video games without memorizing patterns. Maddie tries to tell him that all he has to do is pretend not to die. But Brenner doesn't understand that. Maddie agrees to take Qbert on the trampoline for exercise if Brenner goes to ask Violet out to the ball tomorrow. Sure enough, the 2 of them go to the ball together, and he's absolutely amazed by what he sees. I can't lie, seeing Qbert in a tux is something I never thought I'd see. Brenner approaches Violet to see if she'll split a bottle of wine with him, and Ludlow heads on stage to sing a throwback from the 80s. Brenner takes Violet out to the balcony to talk about her cheating husband, and she can't find anything bad to say about the new girl. Brenner finds a way to make Violet sound even better than the 19-year-old Pilates instructor, and inside, Eddie shoots his shot with Serena Williams. When Violet asks Brenner what he plans to do after all this alien business is over, she thinks that his skills would be better put to use inventing technology instead of installing it. He opens up about how his hopes had been brought down when he was younger, but he'll keep going wherever he can. It's time for another alien transmission, and it turns out that Earth violated the terms. The Fire Blaster, of course. He had cheat codes on the inside of his shades, and I didn't even know that there were cheat codes for Pac-Man. Maddie calls him out for having the super speed cheat codes, and he admits to using cheat codes back when he beat Brenner in the 80s. While the Admiral yells at Brenner inside, Maddie gets abducted by the aliens. Everyone goes home to try and see what they can do, but they're on their own now. Kubert tells them that the aliens thought the old videotape was a declaration of war, and the mothership is creating thousands of video game soldiers to destroy Earth in less than 12 hours. Sure enough, the next day the mothership arrives and her soldiers attack Washington, D.C. Brenner tries to rally the nerds that are left, and he thinks that they can actually make it onto the mothership to explain things. I think we're past explaining things. Some of these video game characters don't even look familiar. Cooper even joins in the battle, and he brings light cannons from the White House. Brenner tells Ludlow that his mission is to stay on the ground to defend everyone there, and he takes his light cannon to take out every character he comes across. Every character until he comes to find his lifelong video game crush, but she's out for blood. Meanwhile, Brenner rushes to the mothership to try and find a way up. Luckily, the alien boss wants to meet them anyways, and he agrees to play one final game for the fate of the world. On the ground, Ludlow tries to reason with Lady Lisa, and after admitting his true love for her, she drops her weapons and kisses him. That's definitely not how it works. Imagine how many people would have brought Lara Croft to life. Just then, Eddie shows up for his shot at redemption, and he fights alongside Ludlow and Lady Lisa. In the mothership, Brenner gets ready for his final showdown, and he finds out that the final game is none other than Donkey Kong. Brenner has flashbacks to him losing against Eddie, but he's determined to give it his best. All four of them rush up the ladders and ramps, but Brenner loses hope when he realizes that there's no pattern. Maddie reminds him that he has to play as though he doesn't want to die instead, and he points out that Eddie only beat him because of cheat codes. After hearing that, Brenner realizes that he's technically the Donkey Kong World Champion, and he makes it all the way to the top. After Brenner takes out Donkey Kong, all of the video game characters explode, but that includes Lady Lisa. Ludlow watches as her pixels float away, and the other nerds are returned to Earth. At least they got to keep Kubert. Everybody gathers on the White House lawn, and Eddie admits to Brenner that he's the best in the world. Ludlow asks why Kubert is still here, but Lady Lisa doesn't stay. Violet points out that he was a trophy, and he ends up transforming into Lady Lisa. After that, Cooper addresses the nation, and he gives the nerds the credit where credit's due. Brenner and Violet share a passionate kiss, and Eddie heads into the White House for his romantic get-together with Serena and Martha Stewart. Professor Iwatani even gets his hand back before the mothership leaves. Then the credits roll. Wait, 1 year later, Ludlow and Lady Lisa have little Kubert babies. And I can't help but think about the process that happened for that. This was a fun one, and it brought childhood memories to life in the best way. Give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.